Remember the feeling of getting lost in a new city? Not the "I lost GPS signal" kind of lost, but the real act of finding your way by the sun, the streets, your own memory. Today, if Google Maps freezes, many of us freeze too. In the last few decades, technology has given us superpowers, but it has also quietly amputated certain human parts. Memory, attention, empathy, skills that once shaped civilization are now being replaced by screens and algorithms. In this video, we'll reveal 13 human abilities that are disappearing and what that says about the future of our species. Get ready. Some of these losses are so subtle that you might not have noticed them until now. Number 13, navigation without GPS. When the brain was our inner map. In the past, people didn't just go places, they knew how to get there. A London taxi driver, for example, would spend years memorizing the city's 25,000 streets. This training was called the knowledge, and studies showed that these drivers had more developed hippocampi, the part of the brain responsible for spatial memory. Today, Waze and Google Maps have replaced the hippocampus with a synthetic voice saying, "Turn right in 300 meters." But what does that do to our brains? Neuroscientists at McGill University discovered that when we rely on GPS, the areas linked to active navigation literally shut down. It's like outsourcing your sense of direction to a machine and letting your brain slowly weaken. We've become excellent followers of instructions, but terrible explorers. The irony? If the system goes down, an entire generation could get lost just 2 blocks from home. Number 12, memorizing information. The human mind has become Google's external hard drive. Decades ago, memorizing phone numbers, poems, or even recipes was common. Today, most of us don't even remember our own mother's phone number. But this isn't laziness, it's neuroplasticity. The brain adapts to its environment. And today's environment says, don't memorize, just search. A study from Columbia University, known as the Times Google Effect Asterisk, showed that when we know information is easily accessible online, the brain doesn't bother storing it. Instead, we remember where to find it, not what it is. It sounds efficient, but there's a cost. Without memorization, we lose the ability to connect ideas. It's like having 1,000 puzzle pieces, but no mental image to know how they fit together. In practice, this creates a generation that's informed, yet superficial, capable of citing sources, but not of synthesizing thought. Number 11, patience and sustained attention. When the world fit into a single tab, there was a time when reading an entire book was normal. Today, if a TikTok video takes more than 7 seconds to hook us, the finger swipes. Human attention spans have shrunk to the point where they're now shorter than a goldfish's 8 seconds, according to a Microsoft study. This isn't just distraction, it's a structural change in how the brain processes time. Constant notifications train our dopamine system to crave instant rewards. Every ping reinforces the idea that something new is more valuable than something deep. The result? Long conversations feel uncomfortable, movies without quick cuts seem slow, and silence, that ancient space where the mind used to create ideas, has become almost unbearable. But there's a beautiful paradox here. Mindfulness studies show that attention can be retrained. Just 10 minutes a day of uninterrupted focus without checking your phone can start to reverse the pattern. In other words, the brain can learn to breathe again. Number 10, reading body language and facial expressions. The disappearance of silent empathy. People used to look at each other. Now, they look at screens even when sitting side by side. And that's erasing one of the most sophisticated human skills, interpreting another person's face. Researchers at UCLA found that children who spend more than 5 hours a day in front of screens struggle to recognize real emotions. When they were kept away from devices for just 1 week, their empathetic abilities improved significantly. The explanation is simple. Empathy isn't a concept, it's a neurological reflex trained through human contact. Without seeing microexpressions, hearing pauses in someone's voice, or feeling another person's physical rhythm, the brain stops practicing. It's like trying to understand a song just by reading the sheet music. And the scariest part? The lack of emotional reading has been linked to rising levels of loneliness, social anxiety, and polarization. We're globally connected but emotionally illiterate. Number 9. Olfactory and taste sensitivity. The world has lost its scent. Have you noticed how almost everything smells the same nowadays? Perfumes with identical notes, processed foods, disinfectants with mountain scent, even though you've probably never smelled a real mountain. Our grandparents could sense rain before the first drop. They knew if bread was good just by the smell of the yeast. Today, our noses are out of tune, like instruments left untouched for too long. Studies show that pollution, excessive use of synthetic fragrances, and the consumption of ultra-processed foods have reduced our sense of smell. But there's more. Neuroscientists have discovered that smell is directly linked to emotional memory. When we lose sensitivity to natural scents, we also lose the memories connected to them. The smell of wet earth, of clean hair under the sun, of bread fresh out of the oven. These experiences once formed the invisible soundtrack of life. Today, with filtered air and packaged food, we live in a nearly scentless and emotionless world. Our brains can no longer tell what's real from what's artificial. Number 8, fine motor skills and handwriting. When touch became just swiping a screen, there was a time when human hands shaped the world, sewing, writing, fixing things. Today, our fingers are mostly limited to tapping smooth surfaces. Research shows that children who write by hand develop stronger cognitive abilities, especially in areas linked to language and memory. Handwriting involves complex movements that strengthen neural connections. But when we replace pencils with keyboards and keyboards with touchscreens, the brain stops exercising those synapses. The result? A generation with illegible handwriting, poor motor coordination, and, according to some studies, a reduced ability to express themselves verbally. Because handwriting wasn't just about drawing letters, it was about thinking slowly, feeling the rhythm of ideas. Moreover, manual activities like sewing, carving, playing instruments, or real cooking are also in decline, and that affects both the brain and the body. Without fine motor coordination, we lose a form of presence, the tactile awareness of the here and now. Today, we spend hours touching the digital world, but we rarely feel the physical one. It's like living in a glass reality. Everything seems close, yet nothing is tangible. Number 7, tolerance for silence and solitude. When being alone became something to fear, think about it. When was the last time you spent 10 minutes completely alone, in total silence without looking at a screen? For most people, that sounds uncomfortable. Yet, just a few generations ago, silence was a natural part of human life. Nights were long and distraction-free. Conversations unfolded without background noise. People knew the sound of their own heartbeat. Today, we're surrounded by constant stimulation. And according to a study from the University of Virginia, people would rather receive small electric shocks than spend 15 minutes alone with their thoughts. That reveals something profound. We've lost our tolerance for introspection. Without silence, the brain can't process emotions, consolidate memories, or create new ideas. The constant dopamine rush from screens creates a mental noise that drowns out reflection. That's why anxiety and emptiness are rising, even in the age of hyperconnectivity. But here's the good news: silence can be relearned. Simple practices, walking without headphones, meditating for 5 minutes, or just observing your breath, reconnect the mind to the body. Silence isn't an absence, it's the soil where ideas are born. Number 6, basic survival skills. When the natural world became unknown territory, imagine waking up tomorrow with no electricity, no internet, and no supermarkets. Would you know how to purify water? Start a fire without a lighter? Or even recognize which plants are edible and which could kill you? For our grandparents, these skills were common. Today, they're almost folklore. In 1970, more than 60% of rural families knew how to perform basic survival tasks, things like fishing, growing food, or repairing tools. Today, less than 10% have any practical experience in such skills. The problem isn't just technology, it's the extreme comfort it has given us. We live in a world designed so that nothing ever fails, but when it does, we have no idea what to do. This is what researchers call systemic dependency syndrome, a blind trust in structures we don't control. A Stanford University study found that activities like camping, cooking over fires, and using compasses activate brain regions tied to self-confidence and problem solving. In other words, knowing how to survive chaos makes us more balanced even in the modern world. Deep down, every forgotten skill is also a dormant part of human identity, and the more automated the world becomes, the more we forget that we were made for adaptation, not dependence. Number 5, clear communication and deep conversations. When typed replaced spoken, today we send 100 messages a day and think we're communicating. But are we really? Face-to-face conversations are being replaced by short, fragmented, filtered interactions. Instead of tone, we use emojis. Instead of pauses and eye contact, we use typing. According to the American Psychological Association, the average number of meaningful conversations per week has dropped more than 40% since the 1,990 seconds. People still talk, but they rarely listen. And there's an emotional cost. Researchers at Harvard University found that deep interactions increase the production of oxytocin, the hormone of empathy and trust. In other words, the less we truly converse, the more isolated we feel. Social media amplifies the illusion of connection while eliminating real contact. We live surrounded by words yet starved for meaning. This even shows up in language: shorter sentences, reduced vocabulary, simplified ideas. Human language is adapting to the tweet format, and with it, we're losing the ability to sustain complex dialogue. Perhaps that's why online arguments turn into battles. We've forgotten how to disagree with empathy. Conversation, at its core, is an art, and we're letting the brush fall from our hands. Number 4, manual and craft skills. The human touch that can't be 3D printed. An embroidery, a handmade piece of furniture, bread kneaded by hand. These creations carried an invisible signature: time. Today, the world is instant. 3D printers build houses. Artificial intelligences compose music. But something is lost in the process: the patience of human making. UNESCO classifies craftsmanship as intangible cultural heritage, and it's at risk. In many countries, trades like carpentry, pottery, and weaving are disappearing as younger generations migrate to the digital world. Yet craftsmanship is more than aesthetics, it's applied neuroscience. Studies at Drexel University have shown that manual activities reduce cortisol, improve mood, and increase a sense of purpose. Creating with your hands is literally healing the brain through coordination. The problem is that automation has convinced us that time spent making something is wasted time. But the opposite is true. Creating is what connects us to the real. A handmade piece of furniture lasts decades, a social media post seconds. And while we trade touch for screens, tactility for efficiency, we lose the most essential part of creation: imperfection. That slight asymmetry that says, this was made by a human. Number 3, creativity and active imagination. When the mind was an infinite playground, remember when you could spend hours inventing stories, drawing worlds, or playing with everyday objects, turning the ordinary into the extraordinary? Today, creativity is being outsourced. Art apps generate images in seconds. Algorithms write texts, music, and scripts. It's not that technology is bad, but there's a side effect. The brain practically stops exercising imagination. Number 2, empathy and deep human connection. When understanding others was natural, not optional. In the past, empathy was built through real experiences: listening to stories, noticing someone's pain or joy in their eyes, feeling the weight of a hug. Today, emojis and likes try to replace all of that. Research from the University of Michigan has shown that increased social media use correlates with a decline in cognitive empathy. In other words, the more we interact virtually, the less able we are to read real emotions, understand intentions, and respond genuinely. Number 1, intuition and personal instinct. When we trusted ourselves, not devices. Intuition, that inner whisper telling us don't do that or go this way, is the oldest and most powerful skill we have. It guided our ancestors through forests, deserts, and rivers. Today, We set intuition aside, relying on apps, analytics, and automated recommendations for everything in life, from what to eat or where, to where to live and what career to pursue. The problem is that intuition hasn't disappeared by chance. Every outsourced decision, every habit we fail to develop, and every trust given to algorithms atrophies this ability. Neuroscientists call this adaptive disuse. The brain conserves energy by shutting down regions that are no longer required. The effect is subtle, but devastating. Important decisions become harder. Internal conflicts grow. The feeling of being lost, even with all knowledge at our fingertips, rises exponentially. But there is hope. Intuition can be retrained by walking without a set direction, making small instinctive choices, and tuning into the body and emotions before consulting the screen. In other words, technology doesn't have to kill intuition as long as we make conscious choices to exercise it. Today, we've explored 13 human abilities that technology is erasing. What was natural for our grandparents navigating without GPS, memorizing numbers, sensing smells, writing by hand, having deep conversations, creating, feeling, and trusting our own intuition has become rare. But this isn't just nostalgia, it's a warning. Convenience brings comfort, but it also limits the richness of human experience. And the more we disconnect from these skills, the more vulnerable we become emotionally, socially, and even physically. The good news, neuroplasticity is on our side. The human brain adapts. The more we practice a forgotten skill, the more it comes back. Memory, attention, touch, empathy, and intuition can be recovered, but it requires conscious effort. So perhaps it's time to turn off the GPS, silence the notifications, write by hand, smell the world, touch real things, have unhurried conversations, and listen to the silence. Because being human isn't just about existing, it's about feeling, creating, and deciding for yourself.